Hello and welcome to this edition of Reporters. This week, we take you to meet those behind the rise of the far-right political movements in Europe. Our reporters have investigated across the continent to understand how nationalist parties are gaining ground. Spain's far-right Vox party has just been sworn in as part of a regional coalition. In Germany, the Alternative für Deutschland, or AfD party, has made strong gains in state elections. And in Italy, the Brothers of Italy party is increasing its influence. Now, I'm joined by Sarah Morris, who is in Spain, in the capital, Madrid. She joins us, and indeed here in France, we've seen that the far-right parties have been able to seduce the younger voters from 25 to 34. Now, you've been working on those three countries, Germany, Spain and Italy. Why did you choose them?
We were particularly interested because all those three countries had memories of far-right dictatorships, and we wondered how that would affect their ability to galvanise young voters. What we found is that in some ways they managed to tap into some kind of nostalgia about a greater past, but while at the same time distancing themselves from fascist movements.
Sarah, thank you. We'll talk to you just after your report that you produced with Céline Schmitt, Armelle Exposito, Mailliet, Louise Malnoy and Lorenza Pensa.
Alejandro Sanchez, Marie-Thérèse Kaiser, Fabrizio Busnengo. These are the newest faces of the far right in Europe. Each one of them, in their own way, shrugs off the dark side of their country's history, campaigning with gusto for young parties. Vox, AfD and the Brothers of Italy are all less than 10 years old. At the Bundestag in Berlin, Marie-Thérèse Kaiser works as a parliamentary assistant. At 25, this former model is one of the stars of the social networks of Germany's far-right party AfD.
On my AfD account, I've got content in keeping with the party's corporate identity. And I publish content about themes in the news.
Like what it means to be a woman, for instance.
Before we start, the most important thing, I'm feminine, but not feminist.
Frightened by migrants coming to Germany, she joined AfD in 2017. On Instagram, she offers a fresh image to young people of the far right.
As long as I can remember, I've been working as a model for brands and in gastronomy. That's why I know well how hard it is to earn every cent.
A PR strategy that is part of the party's DNA.
We weren't represented as we wanted with the traditional media, so we focus on the social networks. And that allows us to communicate directly with people.
We can shrink my forehead and chin and make my eyes larger.
But Marie-Thérèse's engagement has consequences.
Last night, my house was covered in graffiti with anti-Nazi messages.
AfD's ultra-nationalism brings back painful reminders of the past for many. But this activist isn't worried by that.
Germans have a guilt complex inherited from our history. That plays a role in the way the AfD is demonized. We're the only opposition party that really represents Germany's values and that wants to preserve its uniqueness.
Jean-Pascal Homme is another of AfD's new faces. In his hometown Cottbus in the east of Germany, he organises demonstrations every Monday against immigrants and COVID measures.
We're in the streets today because we don't want to be required to have the vaccine. So march determinedly but peacefully. Thanks for being here.
Jean-Pascal saw the pandemic as a means for the party to gain popularity, a key strategic shift. Anti-immigration is becoming less central in campaigns.
I realized that this area worries people. People began to take to the streets. And I also said at a certain point, enough, this is going too far. So we organized protests against the way our fundamental rights had been violated for months.
A campaign theme that hit home. Jean-Pascal is able to win over support beyond his party.
This demonstration isn't just the AFD, it's everyone. I've got nothing to do with political parties. By the way, I'm not a member of AFD.
The young far right is equally active in Rome, especially in the Ior neighbourhood, built by Mussolini in the 1930s. An emotive place for members of the Brothers of Italy.
The rise in electricity bills is unsustainable for homes. It's a burden for families and companies. It weakens our economy.
Fabrizio Busnengo is a natural leader. A member since the party began, he campaigns tirelessly. His main message: Italians are losing spending power.
There have been some small measures, but they aren't enough to cut spending. People can't get to the end of the month. Families are having to pay thousands of euros more every year.
Fabrizio embodies the face of the new far right in Italy. But it's sometimes difficult to erase old tics from the country's fascist past.
Hi, Alfredo. I'm with the team from France 24.
Like this exchange recorded by our camera.
No, ma che sei matto? Ma che stai scherzando? No, ma che sei matto? Scherziamo, no, non si fanno di manco per scherzo, perché se no non scherziamo. Non scherziamo.
Old fascist gestures die hard, but Fabrizio is selling a new image to activists like Nicolas, a student.
Can I give you a flyer?
No thanks.
There are people who take it without a problem. There are others I have to explain to what we do. And then there are some people who see our logo and don't want to hear anything about us.
3 generations after the death of dictator Mussolini, like Nicolas, some young Italians aren't ashamed of their past.
Benito Mussolini, from what I've learned, allowed the building of the first working-class houses. He stopped people from ending up on the streets. He housed people who couldn't afford a roof over their heads. He also did terrible things. Nobody is perfect.
Fabrizio doesn't see the need to dwell on the past. This morning he's trying to convince David, an old work colleague, to join up.
Hi, it's me.
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
I was just reading the paper.
The Brothers is a genuinely right-wing party, but it's a right that doesn't have anything to do with the past. It's a modern right that could actually govern.
They speak about the nation. It's a nationalist, identity-based Christian party. Those are the party's fundamentals, and that suits me because I share those ideals.
A change of tone that has allowed the Brothers of Italy to rise to 20% of votes in opinion polls for the next election. In Spain, a new far-right party has flourished despite memories of the dictatorship. Less than 10 years old, Vox has become the third force in the parliament. Juan Antonio Petit is a Labour lawyer.
Sit where you want.
A year ago, Juan Antonio started at Solidaridad, Vox's union. He represents these 2 security workers.
The bosses really do what they like.
They shouldn't, but in practice they do.
Juan Antonio believes he's found a place to defend his values.
Have you taken my card?
Yes, I've got it. I'll send you all the documents tomorrow.
The traditional unions have clearly abandoned workers. Workers have ended up without any protection, and that causes enormous problems. That's why Solidaridad was set up.
This kind of social rights talk is attracting more and more voters to Vox.
The party is targeting the part of Spain that gets up early. Vox is talking directly to people like that, not to the elites or the wealthy, as people think.
Solidaridad has already convinced 13,000 Spanish workers to join.
Alejandro, have you set up unions in Inditex, in Malaga, Coruña, Guadalajara, and Seville?
Yes, it's done.
Alejandro is 24 and in charge of union communications. His content on social networks convey a certain image of Spain.
We're talking in an ordinary way to people, in a language everyone understands. And we're speaking about values that are totally normal, like defending the nation.
A vision that resonates beyond the union's walls. When thousands of lorry drivers demonstrate over rising fuel prices, is a chance for Alejandro and Juan Antonio to get out their message.
Hi, Alejandro.
There are loads of people, and there isn't a single UGT union or communist flag.
The union wants to win over people disappointed with the socialist government.
Hi, how are you? Why are you here? What are your demands?
I'm here because I can no longer eat.
Because you can no longer eat.
I've had to put up my lorry for sale.
Our reason for existing is to support workers, because we think that's what's fair. But it's clear that we want this government to leave power as soon as possible. So if these demonstrations allow that, all the better.
Vox's deputies say they're ready to defend Spaniards who get up early and to battle for Spanish sovereignty.
The problem is that globalization is ruining national economies. We've got Solidarity, a union that isn't a class-based union. On the contrary, it defends a reindustrialization and the rebuilding of Spain. At the end of the day, only a strong Spain can really defend its workers.
From Italy to Germany and Spain, the newest faces of the far right are positioning their parties at the doors to power.
Now, Sarah Morris, these new parties seem to be relying heavily on social networks as a key part of their strategy. Can you explain why?
That's right, and in some ways they have railed against the traditional media for not giving them enough attention or the attention they deserve. And we know that they're making a very effective use of social networks. I'll just give you the case of Vox in Spain. Their Instagram account is the most followed of any political party. It's got more than 610,000 followers, and that compares to the socialists who are in power, who have 119,000. Those social networks and the way that they are used by the far-right parties does seem to be paying fruit. We know that, for instance, Vox has managed to get, of all its voters, the most amount of voters among the 35 to 44-year-olds. The second category is the 18 to 24-year-old.
Now, also we know that we've observed that these far-right nationalist parties have been quite fascinated by Vladimir Putin over the years. How is the war in Ukraine affecting them at this stage politically?
Well, we've certainly seen that many of the far-right leaders have had to reposition themselves because they have previously made very pro-Putin, pro-Russian remarks and seem to be very close to Vladimir Putin in many cases. Now we've seen that even the activists, for instance, that we followed and our colleagues followed for this report, were also trying to modulate their support and their remarks. I suggest that you listen to this remark that my colleagues drew from one of the activists in Italy.
Many people think that a party like ours, Fratelli d'Italia, could support Putin and Russia. That's simply not true. From the very start, there's a clear position from the party leadership on the question of Ukraine. At the moment, we are carrying out political actions on the ground. We are collecting things like medicine for the Ukrainian people to help civilians, who are obviously the first victims of the conflict.
And one of the other big questions is how the anti-immigrant rhetoric of some of these far-right parties will actually be shaped going forward, because there's tremendous sympathy for the Ukrainian refugees in Europe. And we've already seen that here in Spain with, for instance, Pedro Sanchez, the Socialist Prime Minister, accusing Vox's leader, Santiago Abascal, of trying to distinguish between deserving and non-deserving refugees, and saying that really that was unacceptable.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for being with us. Thank you for watching this programme. You can see this report again on France24.com. And do join us next week for a new episode of Reporters.